You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Today's sponsor, Rapid7, has an irresistible invitation for you CISOs and security practitioners out there. A free 2-day virtual summit. The subject? Preemptive security. Join the Global Cybersecurity Summit on May 12th and 13th from wherever you like. A-list speakers will show you how organizations are disrupting attacks before they can blowtorch your day. You'll see how exposure management, MDR, and AI together let you make the decisive move. Registration is open at rapid7.brighttalk.com. France pushes digital sovereignty. Adobe rushes an Acrobat Reader patch. Booking.com confirms a targeted breach. SAP fixes a critical SQL injection bug. A sanctions-dodging fraud network resurfaces. ViperTunnel infiltrates US and UK firms. GlassWorm spreads across developer tools. Researchers dissect predator spyware's kernel engine. A lawsuit challenges AI transcription in hospitals. Ted Shorter from Keyfactor unpacks quantum computing at scale. On our Threat Vector segment, David Moulton and Elad Koren pull back the curtain on agentic-first security and preparing for post-quantum perils. It's Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. It's great, as always, to have you with us. France is accelerating efforts to reduce reliance on U.S. technology across its public sector, with all government ministries required to submit plans by this fall outlining how they'll shift toward European or open-source alternatives. The Interministerial Directorate for Digital Affairs, or DINAM, has already begun migrating from Microsoft Windows to Linux and replacing foreign video conferencing tools with the domestic Visio platform. Officials describe the initiative as part of a broader strategy to strengthen digital sovereignty and regain control over data, infrastructure, pricing, and vendor risk. Although DINAM itself is small, the directive signals a government-wide shift affecting areas such as workstations, antivirus, artificial intelligence, databases, virtualization, and collaboration tools. France has also moved tens of thousands of health insurance staff onto domestic platforms. The effort reflects a wider European trend, with Denmark, Germany, and Austria pursuing similar transitions amid concerns about dependence on U.S. providers. Adobe has issued an emergency security update for Acrobat Reader to address a zero-day vulnerability exploited in attacks since at least December. The flaw allows malicious PDF files to bypass sandbox protections and access privileged JavaScript APIs, enabling arbitrary code execution and theft of local files simply by opening a document. The issue was identified by Expamon founder Hafei Li after analysis of a suspicious sample, with additional attacks reported using Russian-language oil and gas lures. Adobe initially rated the flaw critical before lowering its severity score and released patches for affected Windows and macOS versions. With no mitigations available, users are advised to update immediately. Booking.com has notified customers of a targeted data breach involving unauthorized access to portions of its reservation records. Exposed information may include names, email addresses, phone numbers, postal addresses, and booking details, though the company says payment data was not affected. Booking.com reported it detected and contained the activity, reset booking-related PIN codes, and warned users to watch for suspicious communications impersonating hotels or support staff. Security experts caution that access to real reservation details could enable highly convincing phishing, smishing, or vishing attacks. The company has not disclosed how the breach occurred or how many users were impacted. Given its large global user base, analysts say the lack of detail increases risk, and customers should treat unexpected booking-related messages with caution. SAP released 20 security notes in its April 2026 Patch Day update, including fixes for a critical SQL injection flaw affecting business planning and consolidation and business warehouse. The bug could allow low-privileged users to execute arbitrary SQL and access or alter sensitive financial data. SAP also patched a high-severity authorization issue alongside multiple medium and low-severity vulnerabilities across several products. No active exploitation has been reported. Users are advised to apply updates promptly. Triad Nexus, a large cybercrime operation linked to Asian organized crime, has continued global fraud activity despite sanctions, according to Silent Push. Active since at least 2020, the group has caused more than $200 million in losses through cryptocurrency investment scams known as pig butchering, along with brand impersonation and phishing campaigns. After U.S. sanctions targeted its infrastructure partner FunNull, Triad Nexus shifted tactics using front companies, cloud services, account mules, and infrastructure laundering to maintain operations. The group now geofences U.S. users and is expanding into Spanish, Vietnamese, and Indonesian markets. It also continues relying on bulletproof hosting and hundreds of rotating domains to evade detection, while targeting major financial institutions and global brands with convincing cloned websites. ViperTunnel, a newly identified backdoor discovered by InfoGuard, has been found inside networks of US and UK businesses and is being used to maintain persistent access later sold to ransomware groups such as RansomHub. Often deployed after fake updates or SOC Ghoulish infections, the tool hides inside a standard Python module that automatically executes malicious code. Disguised as a system file and protected with multiple encryption layers, it establishes a covert SOC 5 proxy over port 443 to blend into normal traffic. Researchers link the malware to UNC 2165 associated with Evil Core. Its evolving modular design and early Linux indicators suggest possible future cross-platform targeting. GlassWorm has expanded from malicious NPM packages into a broader software supply chain operation targeting GitHub, NPM, Visual Studio Code ecosystems, and developer browser extensions, according to Aikido Security. In its latest activity, attackers distributed a fake OpenVSX extension impersonating WakaTime that deployed a Zig-compiled binary dropper with full system access outside the JavaScript sandbox. The malware scans for IDEs such as VS Code, Cursor, and VS Codium, then installs additional malicious extensions across them and removes installation traces. The second stage payload communicates with a Solana-based command and control infrastructure, steals data, and installs a persistent remote access Trojan, including a malicious Chrome extension. Researchers advise treating affected systems as compromised and rotating exposed credentials immediately. Predator spyware uses a previously unreported kernel exploitation engine to achieve deep system access on iPhones running iOS versions prior to 17, according to new reverse engineering research from Jamf. The framework relies on a kernel read and write primitive, which repurposes ARM Neon vector registers as a covert channel to access kernel memory. This enables Predator to bypass protections such as pointer authentication codes by locating signing gadgets inside Apple's JavaScript core framework and using a pre-computed cache of signed pointers for fast hook execution. Additional components support remote function execution across processes, transfer kernel privileges between helper modules, and resolve Objective-C methods despite address randomization. The toolkit supports 21 iPhone models through the A16 generation. Researchers say the architecture highlights the growing sophistication of commercial spyware post-exploitation techniques and their ability to undermine hardware-level defenses. A proposed federal class action lawsuit alleges Sutter Health and Memorial Care Medical Foundation violated privacy laws by using an AI documentation tool from Abridge AI to record patient-clinician conversations without informed consent. Plaintiffs claim the system captured sensitive medical details, including symptoms, diagnoses, medications, and mental health disclosures, then transmitted transcripts outside clinical environments for processing. The lawsuit alleges violations of California privacy statutes, medical confidentiality rules, unfair business practice laws, and a federal wiretapping law. Abridge's ambient clinical documentation platform automates note-taking during appointments, addressing physician workload tied to electronic records. Legal experts say organizations adopting such tools must ensure clear notice, opt-out options, and appropriate data governance, and may require HIPAA business associate agreements if vendors retain recordings or transcripts. Coming up after the break, Ted Shorter from Keyfactor unpacks quantum computing at scale. On today's segment from the Threat Vector podcast, David Moulton speaks with returning guest Elad Koren. They're discussing agentic-first security and what it actually looks like in practice. And speaking of quantum, preparing for post-quantum perils. Stay with us.
And now a word from our sponsor, Arkova, formerly Morgan Franklin Cyber. Arkova is a global cybersecurity and AI consulting firm built by practitioners who've been in the seat. They work directly with enterprise teams to solve complex security challenges, building secure-by-design programs that hold up as technology and threats evolve. From focused engagements to long-term partnership, Arkova delivers outcomes that endure, because no one should navigate complexity alone. Learn why leading global enterprises trust Arkova at www.arkova.com. That's ARCOVA.com.
No, it's not your imagination. Risk and regulation really are ramping up, and these days, customers expect proof of security before they'll even do business. That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta automates your compliance process and brings compliance, risk, and customer trust together on one AI-powered platform. So whether you're getting ready for a SOC 2 or managing an enterprise governance risk and compliance program, Vanta helps keep you secure and keeps your deals moving. Companies like Ramp and Ryder spend 82% less time on audits with Vanta. That means less time chasing paperwork and more time focused on growth. For me, it comes down to this. Over 10,000 companies, from startups to large enterprises, trust Vanta to help prove their security. Get started at vanta.com/cyber. Ted Shorter is CTO and co-founder of Keyfactor. I recently got together with him to discuss the advent of quantum computing at scale, known as Q-Day.
There's been a ton of research. It's a term I probably heard first maybe 30 years ago when I was working for the government. But it's been this sort of nebulous, may happen, may not sort of thing for, a research project for a very long time. But a lot has been happening that's made it much more real of late. And I think, first off, there are multiple organizations building quantum computers of various strengths and continue to improve them. And I think, a number of things are on the cusp of happening. One is I think we are getting to a point where sometime likely within the next year or two, we're going to reach a point where quantum computers are able to perform computations that conventional computers are simply unable to do in any reasonable amount of time.
I've seen some stories about moving some schedules up when it came for organizations being quantum ready when it comes to their cryptography. Do you suppose that's a quiet signal that maybe things are happening on an accelerated schedule?
Perhaps. I think it's a louder signal maybe in some cases. I think just to sort of go beyond the quantum computing part, while quantum computers can have a lot of promise of doing lots of computations and tremendous benefits to society that we've not been able to achieve yet, they also potentially have this potential threat of being able to break two of the most commonly used cryptographic algorithms that are used in the world today, that being RSA and ECC. Those literally underpin pretty much every digital interaction that we have today. So any time the lock icon shows up in your browser, anytime you receive a software or firmware update, every identity that's on a blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, so forth, all those identities are ECC. If something was able to break RSA or ECC today, that would be absolutely catastrophic. So the deadline you're referring to really is the notion that the U.S. government and actually governments around the world have come up with new algorithms that can replace RSA and ECC and actually use different mathematics that are widely believed to be immune to the powers of quantum computing. And this deadline is about getting a transition away from everything that uses those algorithms today to using the new algorithms. And that, of course, is a massive, massive change.
Do you think that breakthroughs in quantum computing will be shared publicly, or is this the sort of thing that nation states might keep secure?
Some have shared publicly. There's certainly been announcements in the private sector from many places. The U.S., IBM is, Google, Microsoft. There's been announcements even from China. That said, I think there's this idea of Q day, right? The point where the quantum computer is able to break RSA or ECC. When that happens, it's likely going to be internal to some nation state, and it probably will not be announced.
Perhaps a strained analogy, but think about something like nuclear weapons with nuclear proliferation, right?
Yeah.
Will quantum capabilities? Will we have a world of haves and have-nots?
Well, if we switch away from RSA and ECC, then the haves should only be beneficial, right? The quantum computing, I guess, just to level set a little more, quantum computers don't think of them as a really, really fast conventional computer. They're actually very good at certain types of calculations, but they're actually not very good at other types of calculations. So that's why it's possible to create new algorithms with new mathematics that is not susceptible to quantum computing. Unfortunately, RSA and ECC are, and that's where the issue is.
So what are your recommendations for organizations to prepare for this?
Well, I think, there's a number of things you can do. Making a change like this is massive. Literally everything that communicates on a network or accepts a firmware update or software update is going to need to get updated. A lot of that is going to happen for you by your vendors, but it's very important to, I guess there's a number of steps. One is, first of all, figure out, if you don't know already, what the keys to your kingdom are and the things that you most vitally want to protect. That's a really good place to start. You want to make sure that you get an inventory of the cryptography and algorithms and so forth that are being used in those environments. That is not always easy to do. Sometimes there's not a lot of things that will come out and tell you that. There are tools that can go a long way in helping you get that inventory. And then it comes down to talking to your vendors, because really all the software that you use that communicates on a network is going to have to get updated. And so that means you're going to need to get updates from Microsoft and Google and Apple and any other vendor of any software, firmware, hardware, so forth in your environment. Your quantum roadmap as an organization effectively is subject to theirs. So you need to be talking to your vendors, understand what their plans are, when they plan to transition, and then plan accordingly so that you can start moving, build out automation, and so that you can move as quickly as you can once you're able to. I guess that's the challenge. Is right now there aren't really a lot of operating systems or software out there that is ready for quantum. That's going to start changing as we get through 2026. But that's the game we're in. You can move the timelines up, and this is, I think, what scares me the most. You mentioned Google moving the timeline up. It's such a massive transition. I'm not sure, even if everyone started today and went as fast as they can, that you'll be able to move everything. So it's just a massive, massive amount of work that needs to happen here.
I hear people say that, it's a possibility that we could have a Sputnik moment where suddenly it's revealed that our adversaries or perhaps one of our allies have these capabilities, and things are kind of different from that point on.
If that happens, that's why everyone, they're talking about wanting to move, right? I think, we try to avoid that as much as possible.
How do you go about coming at this in a rational way, without falling into, kind of a Chicken Little mode? Because it feels so, it's been in the future for so long. And I think it's hard for folks to wrap their head around any kind of realistic timeline for this.
Yeah. I think some of it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. I think the first step is, focus on the things that are most important to you. There are other things you could be doing today. For example, I guess maybe I can give some good news. There's this talk about capture now, decrypt later, right? Which is definitely a risk, right? The idea that adversaries could be capturing today's internet traffic, for example, that's being encrypted with RSA or UCC, and just store it, even though they can't decrypt it. And then once the quantum computer is available, to be able to then decrypt it and sift through to find relevant pieces of information and so forth. There are some good things that are happening. So the standards have been out for a little while, and there is some support. So there was a Cloudflare announcement that came out at the end of last year. I think it was something like 43%, something in the 40s percent of internet traffic was actually already quantum resistant. And that's because browser vendors like Google and network infrastructure vendors like Cloudflare did create implementations of those new algorithms. And so for a lot of folks, you may not know it, but your Google browser can negotiate to use ML-Chem, which is one of the quantum-resistant encryption algorithms, for the transport layer to encrypt data back and forth between your browser and websites that you visit. If the websites on the other end also support ML-Chem, you're actually good, and that's where that 43% comes from. So there is actually some progress in this. So I guess that's maybe the good news. The bad news is there's a whole lot left to do. And getting that 43% up to 100% is going to be a lot of work, and that's just internet traffic. When you go internal to organizations, it probably gets a lot more scary.
That's Ted Shorter, CTO and co-founder of Keyfactor. On today's segment from the Threat Vector podcast, David Moulton speaks with returning guest Elad Koren. They're discussing agentic-first security and what it actually looks like in practice.
I'm David Moulton, host of the Threat Vector podcast. What you're about to hear is from my latest conversation about the future of security. Something strange is happening inside of security operations centers right now. The analysts sitting at the consoles aren't losing to attackers because they're outgunned. They're losing because they're outnumbered by machines. In my latest episode, Elad Koren, Vice President of Product Management for Cortex Cloud, told me something that stopped me cold. Adversaries can already spin up an attack infrastructure from a single prompt. Your team is still triaging alerts by hand. That's not a future problem, that's now. Elad, welcome back to Threat Vector. Good to have you here again.
Hey, David. Thank you. Great to be here again.
Talk to me a little about what's changed since we last spoke. Last time we were digging into why reactive security was breaking down. What shifted in how you're thinking about the problem?
I think the biggest thing that changed is that there's an acceptance of this gap. It's no longer a question, right? I think everyone knows that manual triage is basically dead. I think what stayed in the game is more of the fact that leaders, they understand that it's no longer a staffing shortage. I think the industry has widely adopted the concept that it's more about the signal processing shortage, and hiring more will not solve the problem. I think that is the fundamental change from that point. And that means that we're seeing more receptiveness and more wide understanding that to fight AI and to fight machines, you need the proper machines on your side as well. I think that is the biggest thing.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. I keep hearing this phrase, the agentic-first analyst experience. Really rolls off of my tongue. That's the kind of term that I think could mean anything or nothing depending on who's using it. And maybe you can help me understand, what does that actually mean in the context of what you're building here, and what does it, why does that matter for the experience for those defenders that are out there looking to grow their capacity?
Great question. I think a good way to think about it is probably a good analogy would be cars for a second, right? When we think of agentic first environments, or agentic first systems, platforms, you should think a self-driving car type of thing, right? It's not just that bolted AI or integrated AI on top of something that is more of a lane assist or cruise control. That is something, adaptive cruise control. You measure the speed from your car in front of you, and you can adjust the speed accordingly, or lane assist as well. But if you think about self-driving cars, that means that somebody thought of the entire process. You need to navigate, you need to plan, you need to have the traffic analysis. This is the agentic first experience. You're thinking on the agents as part of the architecture. You're not bolting this on top of that. This is where we flipped the order of things. Instead of taking existing systems and just applying AI on those systems, we thought AI first. And being agentic first, be it SOC, cloud, exposure management, what have you, you're thinking of how you can automate things with AI agents and help them do things in a more efficient way to increase the virtual size of any customer's team, any company's team that's using that, and I think that is the fundamental change and difference between just a AI bolted on or integrated with agentic first experience.
So help me understand something. I'm imagining I'm a SOC analyst. I'm sitting in front of my console today. Normally, I'd be handling triage or correlation or, even initial response. But now that's something that I've said, yes, right? Or maybe I don't. Maybe there's some of those things where what you're imagining is, I've seen you do this. Would you like me to take care of it? And there's some autonomy with the human. But, imagining that you've offloaded some of that work, maybe all of it, what's left for the person to do? And what is that job? Is it better? Is it just very different? I'm trying to paint that picture.
Yeah, I think it's a great discussion, because I think many people out there are thinking, oh, so what will we do with AI agent? Will they replace us? Are they complementing us? I think what people tend to forget is that, and I think anyone encounter that, if not encountering that as we speak, we never get to the more complicated, higher level tasks that we want to do, right? Those that require deep thinking, because we're caught in the day-to-day, answering hundreds of emails or doing all the regular things. Think about security analysts analyzing so many data points and trying to connect the dots and trying to make sense of certain things, triage. What if all the AI agents could do all these basic things for all of these analysts, and they would actually turn a tier 1 analyst to a tier 2, tier 3 analyst just by being there for them and allowing them to identify the patterns that they are required to identify? What if the tier 3 analysts could orchestrate all of those and to say, hey, what about those new MOs, or what about this potential new threat that I have? I think this is where, specifically in security, but also generally in software, we're enabling with the AI agents or the agentic era, agentic-first platforms, we're enabling humans to do more, not just by using the AI agents. That's given, and they'll do more things. It's allowing them that mind share or that attention span that many times is not something we can achieve, to do the more complex things, to invest and investigate those things that require the human mind. Because, well, let's face it, we are still very much needed in the process. I think now we can utilize our brains to the right task. That's how I view this.
So, Elad, you talk to analysts, maybe not their managers, but the analysts themselves. And I'm curious, what's their emotional response to this picture you're painting? Is it relief? Is it maybe some skepticism? I've noticed that in our industry. Is it fear?
I think you see a mix of all of those, and it heavily relies on or dependent on their state of mind, where they are in their career, where they are in the way they see how AI complements what they do. I think in general, the more common reaction that I see is curiosity. It's the understanding that something's going to change. Some of them adopt change really fast. Some of them don't. I think ultimately what we're seeing with analysts is that they need to trust the system. They need to become more familiar with the new ways of operating. There's an interesting thing that happened this one time. We were interacting with a customer, and one of their lead analysts said, "Well, I need all of these things to be done in your system." And all of the things that they listed are things that they've done with the old system. That was a legacy system, right? That they did things manually, they built rules. And they said, "Well, where can we do all of these things in your platform?" And I was looking at them and smiling and saying, "Well, you don't have to. You understand? It's already done for you. Yeah, you can review all of these things here." So some of them are looking at those things, and the smart policies created, the behavioral indicators of compromise that are available in the system, and they're looking at that, and they understand it. All the things that they've done in the past, building this in a very Sisyphic way, you need to maintain those, and now they're going into a system that many of the things they did in the past is doing it for them. So I could see that inflection point of realizing, hey, I can become more efficient now. I can do more. And once you turn around someone that is very fixed on how they used to do things, that's the biggest win. So I see a lot of that, and I'm excited about that.
This episode is live in your Threat Vector feed. It's called Attackers Have Agents. Do you? Thanks for listening. Stay secure. Goodbye for now.
Be sure to check out the Complete Threat Vector podcast wherever you get your favorite shows. Most environments trust far more than they should, and attackers know it. ThreatLocker solves that by enforcing default deny at the point of execution. With ThreatLocker Allow listing, you stop unknown executables cold. With ring fencing, you control how trusted applications behave. And with ThreatLocker DAC, Defense Against Configurations, you get real assurance that your environment is free of misconfigurations and clear visibility into whether you meet compliance standards. ThreatLocker is the simplest way to enforce zero-trust principles without the operational pain. It's powerful protection that gives CISOs real visibility, real control, and real peace of mind. ThreatLocker makes zero-trust attainable, even for small security teams. See why thousands of organizations choose ThreatLocker to minimize alert fatigue, stop ransomware at the source, and regain control over their environments. Schedule your demo at threatlocker.com/N2K today. When it comes to mobile application security, good enough is a risk. A recent survey shows that 72% of organizations reported at least one mobile application security incident last year, and 92% of responders reported threat levels have increased in the past 2 years. GuardSquare delivers the highest level of security for your mobile apps without compromising performance, time to market, or user experience. Discover how GuardSquare provides industry-leading security for your Android and iOS apps at www.guardsquare.com. And finally, it's World Quantum Day, and while it's unlikely you'll find the perfect greeting card for your favorite quantum engineer at the local Hallmark store, the folks at Keyfactor gently suggested that organizations stop staring at the quantum horizon like amateur astronomers waiting for a comet and start migrating to post-quantum cryptography now. The company argues the real risk is not guessing when quantum computers will break today's encryption, but how long it takes to replace the encryption once everybody agrees they will. Recent signals from Google, Cloudflare, and India, all pointing toward 2029 migration timelines, reinforce the message that the clock is already ticking, even if no one agrees exactly when midnight arrives. Keyfactor says large enterprises often need up to a decade to complete migration, which makes wait and see less strategy and more procrastination with paperwork. It also warns that inventory exercises without pilot deployments waste time and that crypto agility is becoming essential as threats evolve quickly. In short, the future may be uncertain, but the migration backlog is very real. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's lead producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our contributing host is Maria Vermazis. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Ever spend all day fishing and catch nothing? That's what happens to hackers when Cisco Duo's on watch. Every login, every device, every user. protected. Cisco Duo. Phishing season is over. Learn more at duo.com.